You don't want those
You,
immortalized for all time?
yeah, you started it. You got the ball rolling.
Yeah. This is
And I'll
true.
just say, if you see me flailing, there's a fly, and it just will not stop pestering me. It's a huge room. Like, there's so many places for it to go, and it wants to go like right here and here. So
That reminds me, do you remember that presidential debate where I think a fly landed on Pence's head? And he
I
like
do.
held still. That guy was like a rock for like 20 minutes in that thing there. I couldn't focus on anything. I was like, get swatted or something.
That's right. Hey, Paco, how you doing?
Hello. Good. How are you?
Good, good. We're just here cracking jokes all day, so
Oh yeah.
making it a fun meeting. That's always best. So, so just you and Paco today, right?
that's right.
All right, perfect. That's what we need. So I think I'll go real quick and just make sure that you know who's on the call today. I think you've met a lot of the people. Obviously, Scott and I, your account executive team here for everything that deals with the contact center solutions. Michael and Hope. I should say Michael Burr and Hope, because there's two Mikes on that team on the call today. Are our solution engineers, our technical overlays for you. So we make sure that we have them on. We'll be kind of taking a backseat a little bit more today. But then we also have Mike and Craig on the line today that kind of helps out with our, business case, ROI, making sure that we are kind of getting you down the right path, that journey that you guys are looking for, so you can take this, what you guys are trying to do, and then be able to present that to executive leadership for yourselves, and hopefully wrap this up in a pretty bow to make sure that it's a good fit for you. So,
Yeah, that's
so
perfect. And I
yeah.
do want to just kind of set the stage from our end. So for those of you who I've not met, nice to meet you. So I am the director of customer service support. So I oversee our quality, telephony, data, kind of the areas that overlap with what we're talking about here. And then Paku is on my team. She leads our learning development and QA teams and processes. I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about today. We should be able to cover many and hopefully most of the questions and topics. For any things that Paku and I aren't comfortable addressing or don't feel like we have adequate knowledge, let's just take them down, and Paku and I can take those away and ensure we get good answers or solid data behind it.
It's perfect. Since we only have about, what do we have, an hour today? I'm gonna go ahead and hand it off to Mike and Craig, and kind of just let you guys take it from there. I'm sure we'll have lots of things to kind of intertwine or have the conversations with, but go ahead and kind of start from there. So
love it. Great to be with all of you, and Paku, good to see you again. I know you and I met briefly a little bit earlier, and I think you met Craig as well, right? So great to be back. I'm going to share my screen, and I guess Michael, Paku, and team, let me know if you can see this.
Yep, got it.
Perfect. Okay, I put it into presentation mode. Okay, good deal. Well, wanted to say hello and kind of introduce ourselves, and kind of what we do, and honestly see how we can help. And I'll just jump right into it, just from a time standpoint, and kind of go from there. Really, at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is focus on your business and understand where it is that we can provide any help or thought leadership. And really, at the core of all contact center operations, there are these three pillars that determine sort of what strategy you execute. And really, in turn, it determines how the service is delivered in your business. So right on top of these three pillars, you can see the three pillars are engagement management, operational efficiency, operational responsiveness. Right on top of that kind of sits the CX or customer experience that you have. And so we like to think of this as a stool, depending on how you on how you engage and how you operate and the way that you respond to your customers. That will impact your customer experience. And those strategies really determine sort of what opportunities you may have in your business to do things a little differently, or to find improvements that we think may impact you in a very positive way. So kind of to go on here at the core. I'm losing control of my keyboard. Sorry.
Keyboards will do that sometimes.
Yeah, it's the best. Okay. I got my mouse back. Here we go. Can you still see my screen?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, sorry about that, a little glitch. So going back to the customer experience, right? So there are factors that can affect what happens within each of these strategy pillars. And so as you're managing your business, and as you're trying to determine sort of where you put your focus, there are different factors that impact each of these areas. So these are the strategy influencers, and you can kind of see some examples of those on the left-hand side of the screen. Those strategy influencers can be internal, they can be external. Your internal strategy influencers could be things like cost containment initiatives. Your external strategy influencers may be things like outside competition, new regulations, something like that. Each of these influencers actually drives where probably you're going to make investments in your business, and right, what decisions you're going to make, what services you're going to offer to the customer, how your interactions flow through your operation, etc. As those decisions are being made, there are other contributing factors and challenges that can come into play that may affect what experience the customer is actually having. So I guess I want to hear from you guys, and Pacquiao, I think we heard a little bit from you. Brian, it'd be interesting to get your perspective. I'd love to just understand sort of in your business, where do you feel the most pressure? And if you're sort of looking through the lens of sort of these three pillars, as you're thinking about, hey, do we feel pressure on the engagement management side, right? Do we change or improve, or want to change or improve how our customers interact with us? Or is it sort of on the operational efficiency side, right? Is it budget constraints? Is it sort of we're in this inflationary market and we're really cost conscious? Or do you feel more pressure on the operational responsiveness side, right? In terms of do we want to make it easier for our customers? Do we want to make sure that that we have very good interactions with them, et cetera? So curious to kind of hear from you guys, and just want to learn about your business, sort of where do you feel the most pressure, and so on. So I'll kind of just turn it to you, and would love to just listen for a second about your perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like this visual, and the analogy of the stool is a sound one, because you'll be hard pressed to find any organization that can't speak to all three of these in one way or another.
For sure, yeah.
So it's kind of starting the top right. Engagement management. We are a little bit behind the curve when it comes to this. We don't have a lot of. One of our areas we're investing as an organization is in the multi-channel space, as with many others, right? Right now, we
Sure.
primarily work in phones and our web portal. And so we do want to give our members more options, both self-service, text, chat, meet our members where they are, right? And so I would say this is a priority, but it's not necessarily what I would identify as a burning platform because it's already been identified by our organization. We've already got projects and work streams in flight, and it's I would say it's not in customer services arena at this time. And so it's not one where I'm putting a lot of my energy or focus on, aside from when we're considering, um, you know, future platforms and when we're considering how we set up our processes, we want to be able to accommodate changes to our business in the future. But that's about as far as it goes today. So I would say this is not my biggest focus, but it's certainly on my radar. And any solution that I'd consider, I'd want to make sure it can account for kind of our future state. Um, the operational efficiency, I wouldn't necessarily say it's so much about budget. I mean, budget's always a factor, right? Everyone wants to spend less money if they can.
Sure.
But our budget isn't a huge concern of mine. But in the same arena, um, our our tools and our processes and our analytic capabilities are pretty remedial in many cases. And I would put all that under the operational efficiency bucket because I think I talked about this last time we met a little bit, but most of our work when it comes to data analysis, reporting, process, et cetera, a lot of it's legacy. They're old processes. They're built on the backbone of a jigsaw puzzle of Excel spreadsheets and we're just not where we need to be. And so operational efficiency, I would say, is my top priority because it's something we badly need, but also something where we feel the pain constantly from it. And this is one of the reasons that I'm so intrigued by and interested in your platform and what I've seen so far is I feel like there's the opportunity to address a number of our areas of opportunity and needs, with what you guys bring to the table.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you hit on something and I'll expound just a little bit too, that what we've seen is that within sort of this three-legged stool, as there's more focus or less focus on each of these pillars, it really manifests in ultimately, again, the customer experience. And ultimately it can drive your revenues up or down depending on the experiences that your customers are having. So it sounds to me, based on what you just said, that again that sort of operational efficiency side, right, is what sort of is giving your business the most pressure. And so from that standpoint, I think you hit a little bit on this, but I guess on the operational efficiency sort of pillar, if we kind of zoom in that area, if that's what you feel is causing you the most pressure, it sounds like you said that some of the tools are remedial, that it causes it is causing inefficiency with your agents. I guess, is that true? Are you seeing that agents are more unproductive than they should be, or that the engagements are taking too much time? Sort of, where are you seeing that manifest? Sort of, what are the KPIs at UCare that are being impacted, that I guess would be the most meaningful focus place, right, to see positive change?
Yeah, I think everything you have laid out here is probably accurate to some degree.
Yeah.
But I would say the biggest opportunity or gap is our lack of visibility into some of it because we don't always have the data or the ability to properly analyze it or compartmentalize it or interpret it. If our handle time goes up, it's tough for me to know why. If my members start calling me at a higher rate or at a certain interval or whatever, I don't know why. If someone asks me, how many calls did we get about a certain thing? I don't know why, right? And so all of that, the lack of visibility and inability to get a sense of what's happening behind the numbers that drives all of this, right? Because if my team's handle time goes up, it's hard to address if I don't know why it's going up, right? And then you're relying upon either incomplete data or anecdotal evidence, and you may not be hitting where the actual problem is. So I would say what you're seeing here is maybe symptoms, of kind of that deeper issue.
Hey, Brian, you touched on a couple important points that I wanted to just kind of mention here. You mentioned earlier about being behind the curve a little bit as far as engagement management, the need for omni-channel, and that wasn't really in your realm. But one of the important things that, to the point you just made on visibility and observability, is having the systems that interact and speak to each other to be able to get to that data, right?
Yes, I agree completely. And a big part of it is absolutely the applications we have available to us. In some cases we don't have the right tools, and others we maybe aren't using them in the right way. And then, when we talk about, like you referenced when I mentioned it not being in my arena, and I would say it's certainly, those things are in our arena, they're just not in our arena yet, right? So we're not reacting to chat and text and that sort of thing yet because they're not implemented.
Right.
Right. So, but at the end of the day, yeah, I think that's accurate.
Yeah, and that's the reason I mention it is because it's so important that as we go through this process and we kind of lay out a roadmap of what's possible and what the opportunities are and the direction, it's to keep that big picture in mind, to not just look for a solution that's going to solve one problem, but something that's going to integrate and be able to work with the other systems within it. One of the benefits with NICE is the ability to do that, to have everything interact and be interconnected. I use the analogy of building a car. I can buy a chassis and a motor and some wheels, and I can build a car, and it'll actually run. It'll get me from point A to point B. But the experience, right? It's never going to be as efficient and effective as a car where all the parts were manufactured to work together. And the experience of driving the car, riding in the car, is going to be so much better than in something that I put together myself or cobbled together different systems that don't work together. So as we go through this, we want to kind of keep that in mind and get an understanding of what's happening within the organization and within other areas, so that we can kind of anticipate some of those things and some of those needs and make suggestions and recommendations that are going to affect that kind of long-term overarching CX strategy within an organization.
Yeah, that's a great point, Craig. And I would agree that is, system integration is key for us. I'm sure you've worked with plenty of call centers and, enough to know that that's often a pain point, right? Is your reps having to log in the morning and open 27 systems and swivel all day long. And, the last thing I want is to add one more over the top that doesn't talk to anything else. And that's the genesis of some of our issues today, right? Is for us to be able to do anything, we have to do exports from 3 different systems and pivot and VLOOKUP and try to make sense of it. So
and the byproduct is your efficiency deteriorates very rapidly when you're doing that. Not only that, but employee satisfaction, which affects turnover and things like that within the organization as well. And so that just compounds the problem.
Absolutely.
Right. Sorry, Mike.
No, that's great. Great conversation. So, and Craig sort of mentioned, that we would love to engage with you and make some recommendations and just see how we can help, provide some value to you and your team. A couple of statistics. Let me just share a couple of things that are sort of interesting just to think about. On average, if you look over here, kind of on the right hand part of this slide, right? Gartner's 2019 customer service poll found that live agent interactions are really expensive, right? You're looking at just north of $8 per per interaction with a live agent. Whereas if a customer can self-serve, you're looking at a lot lower, sort of 10 cent per interaction mark. And what we see, and we do a lot of these consultations, and what we see is that companies really focus and get really good at sort of the top layer of this pyramid, right? The live agent interactions, and they put a lot of focus and effort and energy to make sure that those interactions are very good. But what folks often are missing is the opportunity to either deflect the call altogether by giving customers sort of the tools that they need to answer their question before it actually becomes a live agent interaction, or they miss the opportunity to contain those calls with some sort of AI handled solution. And you can see in your mind, right? You can do the math and see sort of what's left on the table when you miss kind of the opportunity to deflect or the opportunity to contain. And if all of your customer interactions are going directly to a live agent, that gets very expensive very quickly. And so those are some of the things that we want to look at. And frankly, we'd love to kind of sink our teeth in and see how we can help be more efficient on the deflection side or on the containment side as well. So you know, depending on where you're at, and I know I've had some conversations, just some really in a very narrow scope. I've interacted with Pacau. I'm sorry, am I saying that right? How do you say your name correctly so that I can be respectful?
It's okay. It's Paku.
Pacu, okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Pacu and I have had some conversations, sort of narrowly to talk briefly, I think, about some call analytics and improving sort of that side of things. But there's a much broader conversation that we can have around sort of this digital transformation in any organization with live agent interactions, right? And these are steps that we can help with in order to deflect more calls and then to contain calls within an IVR to, again, help customers self-serve. Some interesting statistics that I'll throw at you that blow me away every time, and that is that I'll jump around here a little bit, but it's that 69% of customers actually try to troubleshoot their problem on their own first, and that 73% of customers actually prefer to solve problems themselves. In other words, folks don't want to talk to a live agent if they can avoid it. The third bullet here is that 81% prefer to self-serve than to actually talk to somebody on the phone. So this is really interesting moves kind of in the marketplace and the way that consumers are looking to get answers and the way that they're trying to sort of, again, avoid live agent interactions really sort of lends towards an investment in making sure that they can do that. And again, thinking about that $8 per agent interaction mark, as it becomes so expensive, it really behooves us all to kind of move in the direction of allowing customers to self-serve. And here on top, right, you've got this research. Juniper Research found that by 2022, which is the year we're in, businesses are expected to save $8 billion. That's with a B, in customer support costs. And so there's just this massive move towards this digital world that's happening, you know, right in front of us. So, you know, Craig alluded to this earlier. This is really what our team does, right? We would love to dig in. We would love to partner with you and to kind of jump into these three sort of pillars that we talked about earlier, and find out kind of where are the opportunities, right? And see really where can we help and create a business case for you. I like to think that that we're doing work that you would be doing anyway as you're going through this process and finding what tools and solutions could work for you. At the end of the day, you know, you'll want a business case to say sort of what does this mean to us, bottom line. And you can see this is an example. This is an example, right? Not the example, but an example of sort of what our team does and can come back with. And you know, again, we'd love to dig in and sort of break it down in each of these categories, and get granular to say, hey, here's what it's going to mean to your business. Here's the financial impact. Here's how many calls we think we can deflect. Here's how many calls we can put into an IVR. Here's how we can impact the turnover, and put a dollar sign to that, and again, provide that to you so that you can take that internally as you go through your sort of approval process in the process of implementing these tools and solutions. Does that make sense?
It does, and I've mentioned this before in meetings with you guys, and will reiterate it. I've been very impressed with what I've seen, and doing this sort of analysis does deeply interest me. I do want to be transparent, and I think I alluded to this, or maybe I was right about it last time we talked. But things move fast, right? And
Sure.
we're kind of in the 2023 deep in the woods planning phase. I think the odds are very, very low that we would be able to tackle this in 2023, or any sort of transition like this based upon our current project plan and what's on the docket in terms of resources and finances. And so there's, I guess, the question I would pose to you, because I'm still interested. So this is not me brushing you off. This is me saying 2023 is probably not happening. Does it, you know, if we're looking at a maybe longer time frame, because I think 2024 is very plausible, is this something that there'd still be value in diving deep and continuing to work on it and getting things teed up? Would we typically press pause because there's too much that might change between now and then in terms of your service offerings and that sort of thing? Kind of what are your thoughts around that?
Well,
Hey, Brian, can I jump in, Mike, for just a second?
yeah, please go ahead.
I definitely think there's value for a couple of reasons. One of those being that we can go through and gather metrics and get information and put something together. It gives us a good baseline to kind of see where your business is at. And for you, it gives you the opportunity to kind of create a baseline or a starting point to say, okay, here's what it is. The other thing is, as we go through, one of the things that we provide a nice executive presentation packet that outlines all of the findings, all of the assumptions, and the ROI for the solutions that we partner with you to implement. Part of that analysis is kind of a cost of doing nothing. So you mentioned maybe accelerating the process, or maybe lighting a fire under somebody a little bit. If we come through and we do an analysis that says, hey, you're leaving $500,000 a month on the table by not making a transition, in some cases that can help people find budget for a transition or help facilitate that. At the very least, it gives you talking points that you can use to sell internally to maybe move forward a little more quickly than what others in the organization are willing to do.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's a good point. I mean, to me, what it comes down to is it is resources, right? And I know what we have planned for 2023, and so money isn't always the only factor. It's also IT resources and business analysts and project managers, and if those are all allocated elsewhere, you can onboard new ones, but that makes it tricky. So I would say nothing's off the table. And I want to be completely clear, like, this isn't me blowing you off. I don't have time to attend a meeting just to make vendors feel better if I'm not interested, right? So I am interested, and then that's why we're talking right now. I just want to be completely clear about kind of where we are and some of the risks relative to timeline.
No, that's perfectly understandable, and understand that our what we do, it's a pre-engagement that we offer to our potential customers, and it may not make as much sense to go as deep if there's not the opportunity for something right now. But like I said, to create a benchmark, to give you some information that you can use internally. And in a lot of cases, going through this process, we find opportunities for easy efficiency gains that would self-fund a project, not necessarily going to find you the resources, but again, having that information and being able to have those discussions internally can't hurt.
Sure.
And keep in mind, Brian, also a lot of the solutions that we do offer frees up resources as well too. So, you know, there's a lot of things out there that, you know, the solutions that we're doing is going to be able to open up availability for your, you know, people that are working in quality or supervisors and things that are doing daily stuff on a regular basis that really they don't need to be doing that anymore. That's kind of being helping out there. Also, are there key is there, you can't do everything at once, I guess, like you said, till 2024, whenever type of thing. Was there a specific thing that you were looking to do or to get accomplished, I guess, around 2023, 2020, or early 2024? Or was it you want to look at everything as a whole? Because I just want to make sure when they're looking at doing the financial impact analysis.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. You know, I think when I think back to the demo and, you know, some of the stuff you've shown us in terms of capabilities, I think there are some things on there that, and I would probably have to have it in front of me and to name specifics, but there were some things on there that we consider almost need to haves, right? Like stuff we want to get in the short term, and then there are others that are maybe nice to have that are more roadmap focused, right? And I would look for you to tell me or help me understand, does it make sense to roadmap it like that, where you target A, B, and C and D, E, and F later, or do you just do it all at once, right? And that's right, maybe don't have complete clarity, but yes, there's certainly priorities, you know, among the opportunities.
Yeah, perfect. Appreciate it. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, and I agree with what Craig said. I certainly do feel like there's some value there, and we're, you know, we're a consultative service that that doesn't, we don't charge anything, you know, for going through this analysis, and so if, you know, if it makes sense for us to jump in and help, that's what we want to do, right? So kind of going to the next slide here and see if I can get my keyboard. Here we go. Right. So I guess the invitation here is to sort of think about where you are as an organization, right? And it sounds like, again, thinking about that pillars discussion and the three-legged stool, right? And the operational efficiency side of the conversation, and sort of using maybe some tools that are remedial, that aren't providing you sort of very good visibility and data, right? Those are places where we feel like we can jump in and really help and really have a big impact. And again, the question here is how does, you know, how are you viewing the customer experience overall? You know, what does it really look like?
Yeah, what I was going to say, Mike, one of the things that we find is it's important for us to have an understanding of internally, how is the customer, the CX experience viewed within an organization? Is it a necessary evil? Is it just a cost center that they have to put money to because they have to do it? Do they see it as an opportunity to improve revenues, to drive other parts of the business? Where do you guys fall as far as what you're seeing internally? What is the view of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say here at UCare, more than any other organization I've worked for, I don't feel like a expense center. You know, there's a lot of companies where the contact center just feels like a drag on resources and it's kind of tail end, and that's certainly not the case here. which is great. The organization's willing to spend on customer service, and that is one of our organization's key differentiators, as we see it, is our customer service, and our member feedback bears that out. So our members like dealing with us, and the organization, I think, sees that. And so I think the pain point is the organization has shown a willingness to spend money in our team, but in many cases it's been brute force, right? So they're
Mhm.
willing to hire more people, et cetera, which is good, right? You're not going to see me complaining about that, but that only goes so far, right? And it doesn't scale well as your organization grows and develops, and so that's why we're really seeing that need to invest in self-service and data and the ability to effectively understand our members' needs and respond to them in a way that doesn't just involve throwing more bodies and money at it.
It sounds like, looking at that second to the last button, that then the organization kind of views that call center as part of an overarching CX strategy, not just a tool to answer questions. Is that a fair assessment?
Yep, I would agree with that.
And then the last one, internally, does the company have kind of a vision or view of what the end state looks like when it's all said and done? What it is, what's nirvana for the organization when it comes to that CX strategy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I do not expect there is a vision that we will ever be best in class. I know lots of companies like to talk about becoming best in class, but I also recognize there's a reason that it's at the top of the pyramid, right? It's very expensive and difficult to attain. That's not necessarily going to be us, but we do want it to be a service differentiator, and have the tools to do so without extreme costs, and everything that comes with that. But also, our organization does have a fairly aggressive growth plan, and so I would say the strategy is mostly around how do we maintain our strong service offerings through growth and expansion, right? And how do we not lose that, like so many companies do? You call one and you spend an hour and a half in the IVR trying to get to a live person. Like, we're one button away. And so how do we maintain that sort of thing if our membership doubles, triples, 1,000% in the next 10 years? As well as mentioned earlier, how do we evolve and develop new service offerings, and meet our members where they want to be?
Right. No, and
Yeah.
that's why the digital component is so important, right? Because it allows you to scale so much better than just throwing more bodies at something.
Right.
Yeah.
Mike,
yeah,
I think at this point, why don't we jump to what our process looks like as far as what an engagement would entail?
Yep. Let me jump there.
Sit down at the bottom, maybe.
There we go.
So just to give
Yep.
you an overview, what we're talking about, it's not a real long engagement. It's not something that requires a huge investment of time and money from your organization, mostly interacting with some of the key stakeholders, gathering some information, and then we take it back and do our analysis, most of the heavy lifting, maybe a couple of engagements to make sure that we're on the same page when it comes to terminology, what we're looking at, and the assumptions that we build in to our modeling so that you're comfortable with the end result and it reflects your business and what you believe is possible and the potential savings for the organization. If it's something that you want to proceed with, we're happy to jump in. We can send you a data collection sheet. I believe Paku saw that previously, but we'd probably want to get a little bit more data than what we got previously and jump in there and analyze that and see what we can do.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. So that would be So talk to me a little bit about, so we talked about like stakeholders and like what sort of information is it typically stuff that's,
It's mostly your call center KPIs. Mike, do you have that data sheet? Maybe you could just throw that Excel sheet up.
Yeah, you bet. Let me grab that.
It should, most of it'll be stuff that you have readily available, which is all of your average handle time, average speed of answer, abandonment rates, things like that. Some of the stuff you may have to go out for would be kind of fully burdened agent salaries and things like that. We had it there for a sec.
Hopefully you can see that.
Yep.
Yeah. Here's the data sheet. Yeah, that's right. So it's to Craig's point. It's data that hopefully you have readily available. If you don't have it, you know, we can, I don't want you to spin too hard on trying to get some of this, right? We would use average sort of industry data in the event that you don't have one or two of these. But you can kind of see the kind of information that we're after in order to put together a really sort of robust analysis that's meaningful to you.
yeah, at first glance, this would not be problematic.
Yeah, and I'll send this over to you and you can go through it. Of course, if you had any questions, we'd be happy to respond. You know, there's no secrets here. You know, we play all our cards face up, right? So we'll do the analysis. We're happy to show you our calculations and sort of provide you everything that that we used. Really, at the end of the day, we're trying to do work that that we feel like you're going to want to do anyway. And so we're just doing the hard work for you. We're doing the legwork for you, and then we'll give you sort of everything that we have and that we put together at the end of that, and sort of that nice sort of executive presentation that Craig talked about to go with it.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I'll send this over to you. Take a look, and we'd love to just see how we can help. Really, at the end of the day, you know, we want to be helpful and make your job easier. We want to make, frankly, we want to make you look good as you go to present these solutions, you know, to your executives and to your C-level suite and so on.
Perfect.
So that's it, I guess, Craig, unless you have any other comments, we'll turn it back to Aaron and the team.
Oh, I'm good.
Great. Thank you, guys. Like I said, you know, the data is, you know, they're here to help you in every way. So if there's questions or specific things that you're like, yeah, this is kind of an iffy question, you know, let us know. I mean, this should be an open conversation, you know, that we kind of continue down this road, whether it's now 2023, 2024, we want this to kind of be ongoing, so we can make it better every time. So, yeah. With that said, is there any questions you guys have, I guess?
No, I mean, I think the roadmap kind of answered the questions that I had in my mind. And you guys have been pretty forthcoming with what to expect and the approach. So I think I'm in a good spot. Paku, anything on your end?
No questions on my end. Been working with Aaron too, and I just sent a copy of my estimates over to Brian, the one that I sent over to you guys.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, what and I guess so once we get that out, Mike and I guess Craig, when should we set up a next meeting, I guess, or prepare for with them once we do get that data? Is there something that we need to, you know, that should be 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, a month out? What are the expectations when it comes to that?
Yeah, I think we can turn it around pretty quickly. you know, it kind of depends, I guess, Brian, Paku, if you have time constraints, you know, certainly we can take that into consideration. I would say if we get some data and maybe plan to meet a week later, that'd be ample time.
Yeah, that sounds fine to me.
When did you guys, Brian and Paku, is there a certain week that you think that we want to set something up for? Obviously, I can, you know, we can send some dates and when that time, you know, when we get a little bit closer with everything, but just kind of want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
I would probably have to look at my calendar. I know Paku and I have a conference we're going to, and there's a few, we're probably looking at October here, sometime in October.
That's
But,
fine.
you know,
Yeah.
that would give us time to pull everything together and whatnot as well, right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay. Well, like I said, we'll you know, we'll wait for the data to come through, and then I'll just kind of send out some dates and times once we're kind of ready for everything. And like I said, if you have any questions, let me know, and we just appreciate the time for the day with you guys.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you.
thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Have a
bye.
great
It's
day.
great to meet you guys.
You
Have a
too.
great day.
See you guys.
Bye.